January 9th, regular meeting of the town council. January? May 9th, did I say?
Here, it's okay.
All right, May 9th, regular council meeting, we'll come to order. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Lisa, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Peter Drapo,
Here.
Dale Macklin,
Here.
Jerry Quirian,
Here.
Ray Karen,
Here.
Joseph Gravel,
Here.
Jeff West,
Here.
and Lee Trahan.
Here.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the previous meeting. The last ones submitted were from the meeting of March 14th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Discussion? Roll call, Lisa?
Peter Drapo,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Quirian,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Joseph Gravel,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
and Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Just a second.
I'm sorry. For the TV folks, I'm sorry. I'm getting a message that we are not live on Facebook and we're muted. I can share us to Facebook from here, but I can't do anything about it.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay, but I'm not sure why we're muted.
I have live on my phone, Erica.
I'm sorry?
It's live on my phone and I have volume.
Is that the Zoom link then?
Yeah, is that Zoom or Vimeo?
Oh, that's the stream from the town of Winslow. This one.
It's Vimeo.
Okay.
I will put up Facebook.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is communications, and we have an employee recognition.
Good evening. It is not me that I'm here to recognize. Fortunately, the people that I want to recognize are attending to another incident right now and are unable to be here. But during the last month, we had the opportunity to serve a Winslow resident that was involved in a motorcycle accident down here on Bay Street. And at the time, this is one of those incidents that requires all hands when you have any kind of motor vehicle accident, but especially one involving a motorcyclist. And the individual I want to recognize is Lieutenant Burgess. It was not his shift that was working, and Lieutenant Burgess came in on his off duty and spent more than 2 hours with us as we mitigated patient care from the scene to the hospital, and from the hospital, there were some emergency procedures that had to be done to stabilize the patient, and then the patient was life-flighted out of here. So Life-Flight asked for our assistance, and it might not sound like much, but when it's in the middle of the afternoon, right at dinner time, you're watching your children, and that sort of thing, and for Lieutenant Burgess to take the time out of his day to come in to help is a testimony to the type of people that we have working here in the town of Winslow. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize him. Unfortunately, he's working. Well, not unfortunately, but he's not able to be here because there just happens to be another motorcycle accident down on Main Street. So that's where they are right now. But I thank the council for allowing me the opportunity to share some of the caliber of good people that are working here. Thank you.
Thank you. If you just come in later, have them come in.
I will.
We'll have to recognize them maybe a
Absolutely.
little
I'll
bit
make
later
sure
during the meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
And I think, Chief, that's just another example, because you've been up here 2 or 3 times since I've been on the council, with similar circumstances, but I think it just goes to show the quality of employees we have in your department, and I think the taxpayers of Winslow appreciate that.
I agree, and thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to share that. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is informational only, which was a presentation of the Kennebec County fiscal year 2023 budget. That copy that was given to all of the councilors. Next item is board and committee appointment. Catherine Neto to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate member. We do have that position open.
Discussion? For those who don't know, Ray, that's your sister.
Okay, I was going to ask an obvious question, but I didn't want to actually. I wasn't going to.
Yeah, well,
Anybody that volunteers for a board.
yeah, well, unless you read this and read the address, then,
Yeah.
but that's Ray's sister.
Either one would have been great, even Kathy Nato would have been great.
Any discussion? Lisa?
Peter Drappo,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Query, Ray Karen,
Yes.
Joseph Gravel,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
We have appointed her 7-0. Next item is reports of committees and commission.
Erica, you ready?
So, good evening, members of the public, my wonderful department heads, council, and Mr. Chairman. So we finally gotten to the point at the end of April where the budget is basically done. All that's left is to hold the hearing and have the vote. So thank goodness for that, and it has been a challenge this year, and I'm really happy that it's currently over. And I'd like to thank the council for working so diligently with my staff and myself to pare down some of these expenditures and get the budget lower than what we thought we were going to need. We've pared out 1.2 million out of this budget through a couple of measures, which does include adding some of our FY22 unanticipated revenue to the current FY22 capital budget. So some of the projects that we deferred will start a little early, so that we don't put that in the 23 budget. And then we've used our ARPA funding for some of our capital expenditures, and we cut a couple of things out. So, but I appreciate the council's hard work on all of this year. Facilities Committee has made some progress towards a new town office / public safety facility. Police chiefs, fire chief, and myself have all been charged with coming up with a needs list for any new facility. Not to say that that's absolutely where we're going, but before we can even look at going there, we need to come up with what we need out of a facility should it be new. So we'll be meeting again on that when we've got those lists together and continue working towards looking at studies, see if that's feasible. The April coffee with the manager was a much better meeting than the afternoon ones were. Moving it back to the morning seemed to help, and we've gotten a lot of really good feedback coming out of that. One of the big topics came out of this last one is trying to determine what a good anchor business for Winslow would be, something that brings people across the bridge that isn't necessarily across the bridge in Waterville, but that would be a draw for people to come over here and would draw other businesses to come in around it that might be smaller. So there were a lot of ideas, including really nice restaurant. It was mentioned that the Lobster Trap used to be a really big draw over here. We don't have a seafood restaurant really anywhere locally anymore. Or something that was more family friendly, like a mini golf facility or something like that. So there's a lot of ideas floating around about that, and I welcome anybody else's ideas if they have them. It doesn't have to be at this meeting. Always feel free to send me in any feedback. I was very excited about the meeting coming up in this month because I was approached by Kevin Kitchen, who is one of our District 16 candidates for state Senate seat. He approached me at the Mid-Maine Chamber Awards and wanted to attend. I got 3 out of the 4 candidates for that seat to attend, so it was a really good meeting. I will report more on that next month, but it was really good to have some state representatives, well, they're not state representatives yet, but people who may be in that seat who can understand how Winslow will be affected by certain decisions that were being made in Augusta. Unfortunately, in April, we did have a COVID outbreak in the town office, which included myself and 3 other employees, which is almost half of the staff here in this building, became ill. We did have to go back to masking. That was a temporary measure just to get us over the current infection rate here in the office. I'm glad to say we haven't had any other infections since April 26th, so the mask came off as of today. I will point out, though, that we are currently in a period of high transmission, and if something else should happen, the mask can go on again. This is kind of going to be something that I think we live with from here on out. When we go through high transmission times or an outbreak within the office, we're going to try to mitigate that and protect everybody else from us. That's why we put the sign on the door that says, we've been sick, so people don't come in and not know that that's happened here. Overall, the residents were great about that. They were understanding, and we only had our normal 1 or 2 people who were not happy about that. So let's see, April 28th, we had the Mid-Maine Chamber Awards, and I just want to point out, for those of you who may not have seen the posting on Facebook, Ed Small, our own Ed Small from the fire department, was recognized with the Distinguished Community Service Award, which is a pretty big deal. It's the one that they saved for last. Ed was great as usual. Loved seeing him up there. He gave most of the credit to his now deceased wife, which was a little touching. But I just want to say congratulations to Ed. There's no one more deserving. And very happy to have seen him win this award. On our project updates, I don't have much to report on the town website since last month because I wasn't able to focus on that in April. I was hoping to pick it up when we got done with the budget, but unfortunately COVID kind of derailed that. So we'll be getting back to that now here in May. Dude Solutions, we have the 2 full-day sessions scheduled this month with the developer on May 24th and 25th. The department heads, key department heads in police, fire, public works, and parks have to meet with me prior to that to finalize our data structure, and then we'll be getting that kicked off. I have the numbers of a couple of other firms to call for the junior high environmental study, but I haven't gotten to them yet. I think we're pretty much done with Craig Wilson. Unfortunately, he hasn't responded to the last 5 emails from myself. I know others have tried to reach out to him as well, so hopefully that's not because something has happened and he's incapacitated or something. I hope it's just because he's insanely busy, but we're going to move on. Our food waste pilot, I wanted to point out that we have been awarded a certificate of stewardship for 17,655 pounds of food waste diverted from the landfill by our residents as of February 2022. It's very exciting news. The weather's going to be warming up now, so that means that our numbers that dipped some over the winter are going to start going up again. So we should be able to get even more out of that program this year. I have attached the March collection report for council to my monthly report. You will also find the Ag Commission report attached to my report. And that's about all I have to report. Spring's an exciting time. I'm looking forward to the garden club getting going and getting some flowers and decorative stuff out there, and the new banners that we have coming for right before Memorial Day. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Erica. Any questions for Erica?
No. The masks, the ones that we have, there's not many of them. They don't really fit that great.
Yeah, we have paper masks in addition to that.
Okay.
We have them throughout the building. I know the cloth masks were provided free of charge. I can't remember which agency.
I want to say, I don't know, fire department brought them over, boxes of them.
So we put them out there, but no, they don't fit well. We also have the paper masks for people as well. Some people try to suffer through with the cloth ones, but if I see somebody struggling, I will run and grab a cloth or a paper mask for them. You're correct, they're not great.
You know, the last time you were out, I had a whole one year and a whole the other one. keep them from falling off.
Department heads, fire chief? Anything to report?
Nothing additional, no, sir.
Okay, Amos? Paul?
Not really.
Amanda? Judy? Joe, you or Peter tonight?
Also,
You're all set? Okay.
Make motion to accept.
Second.
Thank you.
Second. Roll call?
So everyone's texting me.
Peter Grappo.
Yes.
Dale Maslin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Rick Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
And Lee Trahan.
Usually it's you guys.
Those pass 7-0. Next up is public comment.
There's two.
At this point in our meeting, we allow the public to speak on any topic that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda? There being none?
We do have one emailed.
The one for Mr. Fletcher?
No, that will go with budget. That is for the budget hearing. We
Okay.
have one emailed public comment regarding brown-tailed moth.
Oh, yes.
And
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
going to try to put up the picture that she has sent here. Then I'm gonna also try to read, which ought to be fun. Okay. Sent in by Rebecca Dean, who's a Winslow resident. She says, hello, I am a Winslow resident living in your district on Barton Street beside Winslow Elementary School. There is a public walkway beside my home that connects Barton Street and Winslow Elementary School. Between this walkway and my property is a large oak tree with an alarming number of brown-tailed moth nests. Last spring, our neighborhood suffered an infestation of brown-tailed moth. This year appears to be unimaginably worse. There are multiple infested oak trees on First Street and Barton Street surrounding this public walkway and adjacent to the elementary school. I want to make the town aware of this public health problem. You may remember the public health emergency declared by Waterville from brown-tailed moth last year. Many public school children, school staff, and town residents frequent this public walkway and school parking area. The caterpillar hairs cause intense rash, allergic reactions, and respiratory distress. These BTM caterpillars will fall from this tree onto anyone walking below, and there will be hundreds of falling each day if these nests hatch. There are mitigation measures that can be taken to treat these oak trees and are most effective if done by the end of May, before the caterpillars fully hatch. I would not want pesticides sprayed beside my home, but there are tree injections that treat the trees for up to 2 years. There are arborists that are licensed to apply this BTM treatment locally. I urge you to act on this public health emergency and bring this issue to the town of Winslow at your next council meeting, May 9th or sooner. Please act urgently. She provides her telephone number. Attached is a photo of the nests observed yesterday beside the walkway. This is just one tree. There are at least 3 more close vicinity that have a large number of nests. She further responded, it's especially unfortunate to hear that Winslow is not planning on taking action, especially when neighboring Waterville has taken the opposite stance to be proactive for mitigation efforts, taking the public health threat seriously so that we do not repeat the public health emergency suffered by so many last spring. As a registered nurse working in this community, I can tell you firsthand that the impact on health and wellness was drastic and damaging. Last spring and fall, I personally triaged an unprecedented number of health complaints that resulted from BTM exposures in the community. Treatment for the rash became unavailable at local pharmacies due to high demand, so much that people traveled out of state to buy the medications. Our primary care offices, urgent care centers, and ERs experienced unparalleled volumes of people seeking treatment for BTM exposure. This created a true strain on community healthcare providers. We saw such a spike in need that it took away time and resources from other health needs that required our attention. This is more than a nuisance. It directly affects the physical and mental health of our community, and it is preventable. If your health was not personally impacted last year, you should consider yourself very fortunate. Not being able to enjoy the outside in your own neighborhood for over 6 weeks of warm, sunny weather is heartbreaking. Only 3 minutes? Okay.
What's your clock? It's 4. Maybe I was slow. Any other by email? outside of, the Ken Fletcher one, which we'll take up at the budget time.
Correct, no, there are no other.
There being no further public comment, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. And we'll go on to table business, Lisa?
Yes, table business, ordinance number 3-2021, providing for an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone a portion of tax map 13, owned by Steve Martin. The portion is described as lots 87, 88, and 89 of the Dunbar Acres and Dunbar Acres Annex subdivision from the high-density residential district to the mixed-use district. This item was last tabled on March 14th.
Make motion, we take it off the table.
Second.
Discussion?
Second.
You know, second and discussion. We're up for the discussion. Oh, excuse me.
You made a motion to take it off the table.
Yes. A vote, Lisa.
A roll call, yes.
Roll call on, off the table.
Peter Drapo,
Yes?
Dale Maplin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yeah.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
7-0.
Discussion. We all know what's been going on with this for a couple of years. You other 6 councils were on the council for that whole time, I wasn't. So I got involved in this in January, and I think I did enough work, and enough research, and enough asking people to find out where this would go. And my findings, if you want to call them that, were that at the beginning of this process, there was a lot of misinformation, miscommunications, and misunderstandings out there about what this project actually was going to entail. They went everywhere from 1,000-gallon storage tanks that Mr. Martin was going to put in for diesel fuel, with Lee Street being a through street, with turning it into a commercial big truck repair shop open to the public.
You forgot the pot shop.
There might have been a pot shop in there too. And it's my impression that back in the beginning, that's what caused a lot of these issues that have been going on. Those issues have now been resolved. We've had public hearings, we've had 2 of them. I've talked to a number of people in that area myself because it's in my district, and I find that there are more people that have no objection to this than those that object to it. Although numbers in that respect really shouldn't influence a decision. So I am convinced, I will vote for the zoning change. Further discussion? Yes, Farah.
I would just like to reiterate, and this is not about taking sides on any one particular side of this issue. The job of the planning board was to determine if there was any legal standing to refuse the zoning request. That is why they've made the recommendation to move forward. There was a legal challenge. We tabled this back in May of last year, I believe, until we could get the attorney's opinions based on the Paper Street issue. No other valid challenges have come forth. So while many of the immediate neighbors may not feel favorably towards this project, there hasn't been a reason for the town to say that it is improper or out of character with what we can do in that area. So I just want to make sure that everybody thinks about that as they vote, that this is not about a popular versus unpopular project. It's about whether we can legally stand in the way of the project.
And also, just a reminder to even the public, this will now go to the planning board if it passes. And Mr. Martin's gonna pull a permit, and it's up to the planning board to make sure that all conditions under our code are met for what he wants to do. So the planning board still has a place in this process to determine what can go in over there.
Do we have 2 readings on this?
There'll be 2 readings required. This is the first reading tonight. Further discussion, Ray?
Just really quickly, I think that if you look at the mixed use and the, what can happen in the mixed use and all that, I looked at it and that's what it could happen now, or it could happen in the future if Mr. Martin And so when I looked at all the mixed use, I think that, and, there's still a 3-lot buffer in that place, so I think that that's, I think it's adequate use for the land.
Anybody else? Lisa, roll call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a motion to pass.
Make a motion to.
Okay, I make a motion to,
Change the ordinance.
no, to approve the motion,
Through ordinance number 3.
ordinance number 032021.
Second.
Ready for roll call?
Yes, we are.
Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Clary. Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
First reading passes 7-0.
Can we do a second reading on that or not?
No, you cannot do something.
I was curious. So,
Next item is old business. Ordinance number 4-2022, an amendment to ordinance 15-2015, removing the requirement in paragraph B1 of sections 14-44 and 14-45 of the zoning ordinance, requiring a 1,000-foot abutter notice from the developer when applying for a building or conditional use permit in mixed use and low density residential zone.
Second.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept ordinance 4/2022 down through 10/2022 as one.
Any discussion on taking it as a group? Lisa, roll call on taking them as a group.
Who was the second on that?
Jerry.
I was.
Jerry, thank you. Second on the, let's see here, so Peter Drappo,
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Clarion.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
And Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And I'll make a motion, Lisa, to accept ordinance number 042022 through ordinance number 10-2022.
Second.
Discussion?
Discussion on what are we voting on right now?
To accept these ordinances.
Yeah, I just have one question for Amos. Amos, on 4-2022, the 1,000-foot butter notice. So right now, we're sending out notices within, for that now.
So no, so that's a requirement on the developer to send out notices to every abutting lot within 1,000 feet of their property line. And this would just remove that because currently we already have an ordinance that requires the developer to send out notice to everyone within 500 feet for any site development, any sort of site type review. So this just removes it specifically from the mixed use zone when it's already kind of covered by another ordinance. It's just kind of cleaning the ordinance up.
Okay, that's all.
It's, there's still a requirement for a butter
Yep,
notice.
that's all.
elsewhere.
Yep, sure, no problem. I'm all set.
Any further discussion? Lisa, if you're caught up?
I think, Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Clarion.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
And Lee Trahan.
Yes.
All right, those items pass 7-0. All right, now. Next item is order number 6-2022. An order providing for authorization for the town manager to sign the amended agreement between the town of Winslow and the Maine Public Employees Retirement System.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Lisa, roll call?
Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Clarion.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
And Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Moving on to new business, order number 8-2022, an order providing for authorization for the town manager to appropriate $700,000 from ARPA funds 391-2001-49001 to fund fiscal year 2023 capital projects.
So moved.
That is open for discussion. I think it's pretty basic, it was all explained to us, and we all been through this, when, budget hearings. And I'm sure that when we get down to the public hearing part of it, that may come up again. Eric, or anything you wanna add?
No, I think the appropriate place for any further discussion on it would be in the budget portion of the hearing. I mean, these were funds that were made available by the federal government. Initially, we did not think we would be able to apply them to any of our infrastructure except for sewer, because the original ruling was that it would have to be water, sewer, or broadband to use it on infrastructure. But the final rule said that all towns are able to claim 10 million in lost revenue and use up to that amount of their allotment on, it widens the uses up immensely to almost anything except for using it to decrease the tax commitment or to pay certain unpaid individuals. For instance, if we were to use that money to give bonuses to yourselves, that would be an inappropriate use of the funding. But it opened up these other options, so now we can apply it to vehicles that are needed and to some stormwater stuff that's needed, which is where it seemed most appropriate to put those monies, given the town's needs.
Thank you, Eric. Are we ready to vote? Lisa, roll call?
Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Clarion. Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
And Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Is there any time crunch on this one, Erica?
No. This is for FY '23.
Just wanted to make sure you didn't need it for,
Thank you.
to move around.
The next one. The next one.
Our next item is order number 9-2022, an order providing for approval of the Town of Winslow 2022-2023 fiscal budget series in the amount of $29,124,995 and to establish a tax due date and interest rate on taxes remaining unpaid.
So
So
moved.
moved.
This requires a public hearing. Any member of the public who wants to speak for 5 minutes on the budget only, can do that now. Is there any member of the public who wants to speak on the budget? There being no one present, I believe we do have an email.
We do. The email came in on May 9th from Ken Fletcher. It reads, Dear Council, I would ask that clarification be provided with regard to the proposed fiscal year 23 budget, specifically. Number 1, the proposed budget is stated to be an increase in the municipal budget of $2,895,113 as compared to the fiscal year 22 budget, which would be an increase of 16.2%. In addition, $1.2 million from ARPA funds from fiscal year 2022 unanticipated revenue funds will be appropriated to capital in the proposed budget. When the ARPA and fiscal year 2022 excess revenues are added, the total appropriations for fiscal year 23 would be $4,095,113 more than fiscal year 22 budgeted, a 22.9% increase. Is this correct?
The answer to that question would be no, that's not correct. I think Mr. Fletcher's misinterpreting what we're doing with the additional funds that we're adding to the budget. Those are not saying that we need those in addition to what has already been requested in the budget, which I believe is how he's interpreting it. We've got even more expenditures that we need to add these monies in for. That is not correct. The original appropriation that I asked for was the $30,363,033. That appropriation was the first glance at the budget before we added these additional revenues. And that one was in fact, it came up for a budget that was a total of 16.2% higher than last year would have been. After applying $700,000 in ARPA funding and $500,000 in FY22 unanticipated revenue, those are the numbers that you see in the council recommended column here under column F. And their proposed budget comes in at 9.3% above last year. So it is an overall decrease to the budget from 16.2% to 9.3%. The figures that we reported on the tax commitment page, these are the final numbers. So this is the final net appropriation of $14,369,129 and the final projected tax rate, which again, I will remind you, as our assessor will remind you, that that is only an estimate. We won't know for sure what that is until everything comes through with the tax commitment, and she publishes that in August. But our estimated mill increase would be a 0.9 mill increase.
The next question from Mr. Fletcher. The proposed budget utilizes $500,000 of funds designated as fiscal year 2022 excess revenue. What is the source of the excess revenues, i.e. property taxes or other?
The first source comes from sale of town property. We had an additional $115,000 there, which we applied. State revenue sharing was up considerably. I did not use all of it, but I applied over $100,000 of state revenue sharing. The remainder did come from the FY22 tax commitment. And there is a reason that the taxes come in more than what we anticipate when we do the budget. If you'll notice here on the tax commitment page, we have general fund revenue, which this $3 million number here, that has an estimate in there. It includes an estimate of what we will receive from the tax commitment. We use last year's figure because we don't know what the next year will be. And trying to change that number artificially to reach a projected tax rate throws all of the calculations off and makes it an inaccurate calculation. So we're almost always going to receive a little bit more tax revenue than what we estimate during the budget, unless there's a situation that changes what we're able to collect. And I believe, Judy, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, that could happen if we didn't certify at a high enough level, or if we got a revaluation that significantly dropped property values. But in general, property values don't drop. We're not anticipating that to be the case this year. So we did end up with a final mill rate last year. It was 1.3 mils higher than the year before. And I believe we had some new properties come on board. We've got some new revenues in there. And that's why we had some extra monies left over to apply to this current budget. I do want to make sure everyone understands as well, the excess revenues are not being taken and applied to the FY23 budget. They are being applied and appropriated within the year that they were earned, which is FY22, our current fiscal year. We are just going to take some of the capital projects that we had put off and start doing them now in the spring of FY22, rather than push them off till FY23 and make our need for funding that much greater in the FY23 budget.
Question number 3 for Mr. Fletcher. The proposed budget includes the addition of 5 full-time positions, 1 police officer, 3 firefighter paramedics, and 1 deputy fire chief, and 2 part-time positions changed to full-time positions, administration and library. What is the added cost, including wages and benefits, for the addition of these 7 full-time positions?
This was discussed pretty extensively during our budget workshops. I'm going to go down here to the benefits tab real quickly. And what we have for the full-time positions that we actually added, which would be 4 in fire and 1 in police, with benefits, that total figure was $438,957. With the other ones in library, we're only looking at the change from what it was last year. And that would be Amy Goldstein. We did not end up increasing the hours for Lauren Benzel to full-time. It was only Amy Goldstein. She went from 33 hours up to 40 hours. Lauren Benzel has not been changed. So the difference in Amy Goldstein's benefit package is approximately $10,000, $10,934.
All right, and question number 4, final question. At the projected increased tax rate of 21.10 per thousand, a 0.90/1000 increase from fiscal year 22, what is the property tax increase for the average home valued at $155,000, and what will be the total property tax increase for all taxpayers?
Truthfully, I'm not sure what the second part of that means. Down here you can see we calculate, we used to use 150,000 as our average home value. Given the current market, the average home is probably closer to 200,000. If you have a home valued at 150,000, you can expect a 4.44% increase to what you're paying, or $134.75 per year. If you own a $200,000 home, that would jump up to $179.50 per year. So obviously the $155,000 home falls somewhere in between those two. But I'm not sure if the question is asking what we will garner in additional revenue from all of those. That's where we come up with the total that we need to meet our appropriation level up here. That's why we would have to hit that increase. So we're kind of getting into a circular issue. We're trying to make up, the number that we're trying to make up is this $803,000 right here.
That is it from Mr. Fletcher.
I just want to add one thing, Erica, to that last question. The easiest way for a taxpayer to figure out, based on the numbers we have right now, on what the increase in your tax bill will be, it is $90 per 100,000 of valuation. Go by that number. If you go to 200,000, it's that 179, 180, or the 150 would be in between the two. But the easiest way to figure it is $90 per 100,000 valuation. That comes out somewhere at $7 or $8 a month.
That's for 100,000. If you get a property tax value at, say, 300 or 400,000, so you double, triple, quadruple.
No. Yes, the $90.
Yeah.
If your property is valued at $300,000, your tax bill is going to go up $207 this year. Just take it in increments of 90 per 100,000.
Is that it for public hearing?
That's all that I have for letters to read, yes.
Okay.
Okay, no further public hearing participants, we'll close the public hearing. We need a motion on the order.
We have a motion from Jeff to approve, and Lee was the second. We just need to do a roll call.
Do we have discussion?
Any further, no, we can have council discussion. Any further discussion by the council? Yes, right.
I just want to say thank you, Erica, and because a lot of this budget is employee related, and the work you did with your department heads. I also like to thank the department heads for the needs of the council and the needs for the town moving forward. It's difficult, it's painful, but the work everybody did to get to that point where we feel comfortable with those increases across the board for future was a great piece of work, and I just want to thank you and your department heads and the council too for getting through that. It's important.
Thank you, Aaron. I do have one point to bring up. When we added the deputy chief position, during our discussions, none of us realized we needed to add some type of allowance for his vehicle. So we're not purchasing a new vehicle. What we're proposing is to allow a vehicle allowance, just like what I get. The deputy chief will not need a vehicle all the time. It's not for going back and forth to work. The allowance would be for when the deputy chief is called onto duty, when he is not already in duty. And I shouldn't say he, I'm assuming it's going to be a he. There will be an actual job posting out there, it could be a she. But that individual will only need to have their allowance for when they are called to duty posts or meetings that are outside of their normal hours here at the office, because generally they'll be able to use a vehicle that's here. What I'm proposing to add, and it goes into a personnel line item, just like the rest of our department heads who do have a vehicle allowance already, is to add $2,500 on annual vehicle allowance, which is roughly equivalent to my own.
Do we have to act on that, or we just?
We could discuss
We
it.
would have to amend the budget, so it will take a motion and discussion.
Discussion, and then a motion to amend.
Can I make a?
Any discussion on the issues? No discussion?
Can I make a motion
Yes.
to amend $2,500 for deputy chief vehicle allowance to add to the budget, please?
Second.
Discussion on the amendment. Lisa, roll call?
Alrighty, Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Maslin.
Yes.
Jerry Clarion.
Yeah.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
The amendment passes 7-0. And now, ready for a roll call?
We got a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept order number 9, 2022 as amended.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, Jeremy. Discussion on the budget as amended. I would like to say a few things, this being my first budget process. We knew it was gonna be difficult. We knew going in that employee benefits and employee numbers was gonna be the biggest issue. We had 3 6-hour days. We put in 18 hours on this as a council. Plus the time that I'm sure each of us put in outside the council chambers. So we didn't just willy-nilly go through this and take everything that Erica put before us. And we had some discussions, to put it mildly on sometimes. But we came out of it, I think, with a budget that fixes something in the town going forward, for this year anyway. There are more issues we'll deal with as time goes on. But this budget certainly moves us. And the school board, people have to realize that the school board basically is 2/3 of this budget, thereabouts. And for the last 2 years, the school board has come in with some numbers that I think surprised this council. They have people on their end that know what they're doing, and 2 of them are sitting here tonight. Without them doing their due diligence and coming in with a budget because of their big number, we wouldn't be where we are today. And Peter and Joe, I wanna thank you for myself, for the work you guys have done the last 2 years on your school budget. Any further discussion, Jerry?
Yeah. The mill rate will not be known until August.
That's right.
It could be a little high, it could be a little lower.
Historically, it can deviate a few tenths either way. There's not usually any big increase. You're talking maybe a tenth here or there,
Yep.
historically.
Yep.
It should not make a big difference. Anything further from the council? Lisa, we'll have a vote on the order as amended.
Yes. Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Maslin.
Yes.
Jerry Clarion.
Yeah.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Passes 7-0 as amended.
Can I have a point of order for a minute?
That's right.
We have the firemen here right now, before they leave, perhaps another call, would it be able to do a personal employee recognition, just really quickly, through the chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. And through the chair, thank you, Councilman Karen. We have here today Captain Scott Baldwin, firefighter Jonathan Barringer, every now and then, and Lieutenant Burgess. It is actually the day of the call was Captain Baldwin and firefighter Barringer that were running it, and myself and Lieutenant Burgess added on to the call. And I just want to give kudos to Adam for giving up his day off to put in at least 2, if not 3 hours of his time to help mitigate and provide interventions for the patient that ended up being life-flighted out of there. So, Lieutenant Burgess, thank you.
Again, I would just like to add something else, Chief, on the, of course, the big issue in the budget was the increase in your department and employees. And the biggest reason for that, there are others, but that I want to say is because we have 3 of you here tonight. You have 3 per shift.
That is correct.
If a call comes in right now, you send 2 out, or all 3 out, you only have 1 left in the station. Giving you 3 extra puts you another man on shift. So you basically have 2 crews that you could send out at the same time if needed.
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you, General.
I just want to add my thank yous to you all. 3 of you are doing everything right, and it's exactly why our fire service and our rescue service is so important in this town. And your dedication to your field is very much appreciated, and personally it's appreciated by me. So congratulations on being recognized, but thank you so much for doing what you do.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yes, Jerry.
Next reading on the budget, June.
No, Thursday night.
This Thursday night.
Thursday night, 6 o'clock right here. Okay. Lisa, I believe we're down to the budget's been taken care of, number 10, 2022.
We are, yes, order number 10-2022. An order providing for authorization for the town manager to renew the dispatch services agreement with the city of Waterville for a period of 3 years per the attached agreement.
So,
Any discussion? Lisa, roll call?
That was quick. Peter Drappo.
yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Our next item on the agenda is order number 11-2022. An order providing for authorization for the town manager to contract with Hank Farah Consulting for an amount not to exceed $14,000 for the pre-audit services for fiscal year 2022 year-end audit.
So moved.
Discussion? No discussion? Lisa?
Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel. Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Is that better, these time sensitive?
These are both, order number 11-2022 and 12-2022 are both time sensitive. RKO dropped us in April, and that's not enough time to do a full RFP and to try and do this in our normal full time frame of having the first reading and then the next month the second and then waiting 30 days. As it is now, it'll be 30 days before this can take effect and I can actually enter an agreement. And we should be starting our year-end audit in June. I did interview 2 different auditors, and Hank is our former auditor at RKO, and he is the one providing the consulting services. So that's what appears before you in these 2 orders tonight, is to try and get that moving. I do want to point out, as you're looking at both of these orders, we're in a market right now that does not, it's not very friendly to getting these services. A lot of the big firms are dropping municipal services altogether. They don't want to do audits for the municipal group. We tend to be a little bit more, not exactly complicated. The accounting should be rather similar, but the problem is, especially with some of the smaller towns, and frankly with ourselves, there's a lot of unraveling they have to do to finish out their audits, and some of them just don't want to do it anymore. In addition, most firms are raising their rates for this coming year, and I know of 3 towns personally and about another 10 anecdotally that are struggling to find auditors for this year. The message I got from one of the other town managers just on Thursday this last week was, if you have an auditor, hold on to them. So it's definitely not a buyer's market right now for these services.
Make motion to take second reading this evening.
Second. Discussion? Discussion?
Roll call. Peter Drappa?
Yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes.
Jerry Currier?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Gravel?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Waiving second reading passes 7-0. Our next number is order number 12-2022, an order providing for authorization for the town manager to contract Eric Nevin for audit services for fiscal year 2022 year-end audit.
So,
Discussion?
What firm, excuse me, through the chair, what firm does he work with?
His firm is, I can't remember all the names that go with it. I put it on the order itself.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
It's not Perry Fitz.
No, it is not. He works with 2 partners, that's it. They're a smaller firm out of Waterville. They specialize completely in municipal and nonprofits. Eric himself has been doing the audit for the town of Waterville since 2006.
Okay.
So, what is the cost of Eric Nano's audit service?
He charges by the hour, and we won't know exactly until we get Hank's portion of it done. We have an estimate of 200 hours for the entire audit, but what Hank does will decrease a lot of that. And depending on how much Hank does for us, which he's offered to do the vast majority of it, including the financial statements, we will be paying the difference to the new auditor. At the very high end, it could be 20,000. At the very low end, it could be 7,000. We're not going to be coming in at the $21,000 ticket that we've had in the past. And actually, we've overexpended that budget a couple of times in the last couple of years.
Further discussion?
Roll call. Peter Drappa?
Yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes.
Jerry Currier?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Gravel? Jeff West?
yes.
And Lee Trahan.
Yes.
First reading passes 7-0.
I move to waive the second reading.
Second.
Ready for roll call?
Yes, we are.
Peter Drappa?
Yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes.
Jerry Currier? Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Gravel?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Our next item is resolution number 8-2022, providing for authorization for the town manager to appropriate $500,000 from unanticipated fiscal year 2022 revenue to fund fiscal year 2022 capital projects.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? I think this falls into what we've been discussing on the budget all along. Lisa, roll call?
Peter Drappa?
Yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes.
Jerry Currier? Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Gravel? Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next item is resolution number 9-2022, providing for authorization for the town manager to accept $200,000 in state funding and $50,000 in loan forgiveness from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection for the Chapman Brook Pump Station upgrades.
So moved.
Discussion? Lisa, when you're ready?
Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Matherin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel. Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Resolution 9-2022 passes 7-0. Next item is discussion items. We have Spirit of America.
I guess this has been going on for the last couple of meetings. I think we all know what the Spirit of America Board is and understands, and Erica's put it in her report. I made some nominations of Kit Alexander, Ron Sandeman, and Scott Wentworth for the volunteer work they did with our cemeteries last summer and continue to do it this summer, hopefully, if things go right. It was still open for further nominations, if anybody has any further nominations. I guess then I will move that the three, Kit Alexander, Ron Sandeman, and Scott Wentworth, be nominated and approved for the recipients of the Spirit of America Award.
Second.
Any discussions? Lisa?
Roll call is Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Matherin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yeah.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel. Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Those three will pass 7-0.
Kit, Scott, Ron Sandeman, Scott Wentworth.
Point of order. On the Spirit of America, the discussion item. Those are not, they're just discussion items, and not something that we, that we, vote on, just for us.
Erica?
You all have voted. It's, you're correct, it's not the same as voting on an order or resolution. However, when someone puts forth the Spirit of America awards, the council does need to make the recommendation. Last year, this is the way we did it. We did not have a resolution, but we agreed basically by a straw vote, just as we just did, except that it was a roll call vote as to which nominations would be accepted.
That's the process, Jerry, that the group that puts on the Spirit of America Awards, this is a national program. And that's the way they request that we send them something, recommended
That's
names
fine.
or voting.
But it sounds like we have resolutions and orders and ordinances, then all of a sudden this pops up in there and we're voting on it and not just saying, hey, good, we should be doing this as a, what I'm trying to say, okay, just as a discussion item, and then we can just request that these people be forwarded
That's basically what we're doing, Jerry.
without voting.
Whether you want to call it a vote or request, I think that these
then
people,
we'll
it
make it a
doesn't,
request.
it's not, I don't think it makes any difference, Jerry.
The council has to be in agreement with anybody that we submit, because anybody that we submit and gets selected, the council has to have been behind it. It doesn't, it's not the same as a lot of the others in that there's no money involved here, it's just recognition. But in the past, and I've only been, this is only my second budget year and my second year for Spirit of America, but last year there was some fairly vigorous discussion around some of the people that were nominated. And some of it we wanted to keep a little private because we didn't want any negative comments to be in the public arena. So we did ask that any of those comments be sent to me individually, and then we voted at the next meeting as to whether those were going to be accepted or not. But we didn't put it on a resolution. This is kind of the same way we did it last year. But the Spirit of America Committee, the board, not sure exactly what their formal name is. But they require that we have a council consensus to nominate anyone for the board.
Next up for discussion items.
We have discussed the Browntown law, so we are gonna move on to the school budget referendum ballot.
Well, we didn't actually discuss it.
The only reason that this was being brought forward, I spoke with Erica about it, is every 3 years we have to tag on that extra question.
I think it's referring to Browntown law.
Was Jeff
Oh, I'm
referring to
sorry.
Browntown law?
Yes.
Yes.
I did want to, Ray had asked me to bring this up for discussion, because the resident originally contacted him. I did have some responses for Ms. Dean. I did not read those in public comment, because during public comment, we can't have that back and forth interaction. The biggest issue that I'm seeing with Downtown Moth, and the reason that we had opted to work with Waterville, Fairfield, and Oakland on an informational campaign is out of the 4 communities, only one had any money to put towards this effort, and that was Waterville. However, the $100,000 that they're putting towards this, by constitution, by state constitution, they cannot use any of that on privately owned trees. And they are using it for inoculations. At their cost, they said it was gonna be $10 a tree for what they were doing. Although estimates from arborists are quite a bit higher. So what we agreed upon as the 4 towns was that we would coordinate on an informational effort to make sure that people understood what they can do on their own properties to mitigate brown-tailed moth, how they could be disposed of, if you cut them out, what not to do, things like don't burn them, then you can inhale the fibers in the flames, things like that. And making sure that people knew what to do should they come into contact with them, or if they have the brown-tailed moth on their property, things like wearing long-sleeve shirts and putting on a mask when you mow or work outside in those areas to make sure you're not breathing in the moth hairs or getting them on your skin. That was basically the agreement that we came to. Waterville did kind of launch that without the other 3 towns, but we're all still sharing the same information. And we've been putting out information on our website and our Facebook page. It's also gone out on the Ad Commission's page to make sure that people understand what's out there. And I'm sad to say that the money that Waterville is putting towards this, it's really more of a PR campaign than an actual solution. Because the truth is, if you treat your property and your neighbors don't, you're not making a dent in the population. You're just gonna move around. So what really needs to happen is an overarching regional solution. And really, to me, that's more of a state level issue than it is a town level issue. We can throw money at this if we want to, but we're probably not going to have any other actual effect other than increasing an already stretched budget to do something that isn't going to really help us in the long run. That, of course, is my opinion. Should council feel differently that we should spend money on it, that's certainly at the council's pleasure. But my opinion is that we are throwing good money after bad if we do that.
Yes, Peter.
I agree with Erica, and if you're gonna throw money at any insect pest problems, nobody's ever addressed the tick issues. And like this year is horrible for ticks. Now you can die from a tick bite. It's documented every year. Nobody has died from a caterpillar rash. I mean, you can bounce this around non-stop, but Erica's right. $1 million would not eradicate Winslow and brown-tailed moth. The only way to do it, and nobody would ever go for it, would be a mass spraying. The only way. And the same, that lies true with the ticks, that lies true with, with invasive hornets. It can't happen anymore.
I think
I'm also in agreement. I think reading Erica's response and considering considering the health issues and other issues, how far does it go with them versus others? And nothing is proven successful yet. So what are we gonna do? I would say we leave things the way they are, knowing that we can, if a drastic epidemic does come up and there is a solution to it, we can figure it out when that time comes. That may sound a little crude or something about those that will get the round tail law draft, but from the perspective of the town of Winslow, you know, whose property do you do? All private property, including the town property?
You can't legally do private property.
Well, that's an issue.
Through the
Yes.
chair too. I
Right.
just, we as a council didn't fund any money. We all agreed at that meeting that we were not gonna fund money this year for it. The reason why I brought it up for discussion is just basically, I think it's good to talk about it. I think it's good to inform the public why we're not doing the things that Waterville is doing, and I think it makes sound judgment that we're doing what we're doing. Things change in the future. We might say, or the state might come down with something that, you know, that funds would be available for that, and then we take another look at it. But for this summer and this year, at this point in time, we all agreed that we weren't gonna do anything. We're gonna think about it for the future if something changes.
I think I have one more piece of public information, since we are still being broadcast. One of the things that we are going to be using the new asset management system for is to track complaints for brown-tail moth. When we've got that up and running, there's actually there's a public interface, a form for not customers, but the public to put in any kind of complaints they need to for the town, whether that be there's a pothole, or there's a sign that's damaged, or we've got a broken piece of playground equipment. But one of the things that also is specifically in there for them to report is brown-tail moth infestation. And we're gonna be making that piece of it available to the other 3 towns as well, so that we can try to get a broader data gathering effort going on. And the gentleman who is working on this on the Waterville side is one of their counselors, Thomas Klepak, who's a biology professor over at Colby, and they're gonna be utilizing some of Colby's resources to actually analyze the data as we're collecting it. So it's not that there's no effort going on at all. We do have those available, and once we get that up and running, I will put out a public notice and encourage people, if you've got brown-tail moth on your property, please report it, so we can try and get more data.
It is a very serious issue, and there are people in the community that can't go outside in the summertime because of this particular pest, and it is a serious issue.
I will also say that the State Forestry Service has been directing people to contact the municipalities and ask them to shut their streetlights off. We determined after last year that we weren't going to do that. We did it for one person. The bill that we got from Winslow Electric to turn it off and then turn it back on after summer was over was $140 each time. So as we start having more and more requests to do that, that's going to become cost prohibitive. Beyond that, though, there's a safety issue with turning off streetlights. If we have a streetlight in a particular area, it's because it was deemed a safety issue that we put a streetlight in that area. So you've kind of got to weigh both perspectives there. So just so everyone knows, we did decide last year we won't continue to do that. But I think the Forestry Service is kind of getting overwhelmed with questions because that's the primary source of information for people. And they're kind of pushing back on the locals to try and get them to do that. But on our end anyway, that's not really a viable solution.
Okay, no further discussion on brown-tail. Lisa, the final?
Next item is school budget referendum ballots. And I can address that. The reason that I brought this forward is just as a reminder that every 3 years we're required to add on the additional question of, do you wish to continue the budget validation referendum process for Winslow Public Schools for an additional 3 years? So the residents have that option to vote on that every 3rd year. So that is added on. And if they were to say no, it would take it so that it would not have to be voted going forward.
Peter, Joel, do you have any thoughts on whether you prefer the referendum or not the referendum, or stay out of a political issue, or leave it the way it is?
All I know is the turnout for those votes have been small. That's my observation. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, because you usually fall in June on an off year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes,
Through the chair, Lisa, what other towns are doing this right now?
I spoke with the Waterville clerk last week, and I didn't realize that Waterville had voted it to not continue voting for the referendum, so they don't do that at all anymore. It's off their plate, which does, I mean, it does save money in the end for balloting purposes and programming machines. This year, where it was a smaller election, I've decided to go ahead and do a paper ballot for the school, just because it's gonna save us a couple $1,000s, so we don't have to program the machines. It's a quick count, so that's the good thing, but, I thought it was interesting that Waterville doesn't do it anymore, so it's just something their community decided to say that they don't need to do it anymore, and voted that
I
way.
believe Oakland does, because I think they went through 3 different votes one year not too long ago. They went to the referendum, I think it was at least 2, maybe 3. Newport does, I believe, and I think Fairfield does also, as the voter approval.
Yes, I think probably the standard throughout the state is, I was asking the question so that we could,
Majority-wise, it is voted on by communities. So,
Those towns you mentioned are RSUs, so their budget will be voted on anyway.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
I have been invited to that conference myself. So, also, Lisa, in addition to the ballots, we pay how much for the VFW hall?
it's $2,000 for every election that we have at the VFW as a cost.
And how often do we have elections where the school budget is the only?
Every June, every June.
But for instance, this year we've got primaries. Last year, we had nothing else on the ballot.
Yes, I've done it before where this was the only item and we decided to have the election in-house here, just because I knew the foot traffic would be minimal, and that saved us that $2,000 rental fee. So, but this year where it's tagged on to a state referendum, you know, it just kind of floats through with it that way.
I would say leave it the way it is. Although we're not making an official thing, it's up to the voters.
I mean, there are some communities, I wanna say that it was Winthrop a couple years ago, where they voted down the school budget. I wanna say it took them 3 times to get it to pass through. So, I mean, Winslow's not controversial. It's been pretty straightforward, all the years that I've been here, so.
And when does absentee balloting start, Lisa?
It will
Do you have
start
any
on
idea?
Monday. We have not received our state ballots yet. I called today and have not heard back from them, so we're waiting for those. But Monday, we should hopefully have everything in hand and, be able to start issuing them.
That will be posted on our website?
It'll be on the
That it's
website.
available for absentee?
Correct.
So the question at this point, though, is do we want to let the voters vote on whether they vote on the school budget every year? So they're gonna vote on the school budget no matter what this year.
Correct.
But we can add the question to the ballot, do you wanna continue doing this? Or is the budget that we pass here, that we have the public hearing, we have people come in, the school budget is part of that already, is that enough?
So on our, question 2 on the ballot, if they voted no, that would wipe this out and we would not do it going forward, unless it was brought back forward. Say somebody, a resident, wanted to petition or bring back, voting for the school budget. So if they voted no on this, it would be just pass through with the town budget each year and no extra voting on it.
Yes, right?
I think it's worth putting it on because I think that it's, you know, either, if you vote yes, it stays the same. If you vote no, it eases up. So I think it's worth a chance. It's worth to put it on the ballot myself. Because we win if it's a, in my opinion, we win if it's a no. It stays the same as a yes. So I would put it on.
Yes, by law, it has to be on the ballot.
Has to be?
It has to be,
Okay, so-
every third year, it gets added.
Okay, so what do we?
Voted then.
So, happy anniversary, it's our third year.
Okay, sounds great.
And that's it for our regular session. We do have an executive session scheduled. Motion to enter executive session pursuant to 36 MRSA subsection 841 to the poverty abatement discussion.
Second.
Thank you.
I know.
I know.